Alright, Andres, so this is your blank. This is eventually going to be your board. Right now, what I'm doing, I had to wait to start it. My camera batteries weren't charged, so I charged them and then. So right now what I'm doing is I am creating your template. Kind of using an old school method. I don't have an actual template for this board, as in like the tracing of a half of a board. So what I'm doing is I have measurements in my head that I want to hit. So I have the midpoint here, and then I've measured in from the nose 12 inches and 24 inches, and I measured in from the tail 12 inches and 24 inches. And then I figured out, we know that for your board we want to do a 6/6 that's about 22 inches wide. You know, it's going to be fairly, this board's going to have a lot of volume for you. So I know the midpoint that I want to hit, so based off of that I've created a couple measurements up here at the 24 inch mark and the 12 inch mark. So right now what I'm doing is I'm using one of these 1/8 inch dowels that are super flexy, and I've tacked in a couple nails at these measurements, and I'm using this to create your curve, the template for your board. This is super old school method. We don't really see it used a lot anymore. A lot of guys have, you know, cutouts of certain curves that they like to use for their boards. They have a lot of guys. I mean, why not? But so that's what I'm doing right now. Just taking this and creating a curve that I like on these measurements. So kind of taking this, flexing it, and based on, you know, the kind of volume I want to keep your midpoint is right here, and your wide point of your board is actually going to be right about here, about 3 to 4 inches in front of the midpoint. So that keeps more volume under your front foot. Bigger guys tend to surf more on their front foot than anything else. But it's still going to be fairly wide throughout the tail. So right now we're just creating this line, and then we'll cut this out. Alright, so as you can see, it's taken me a couple tries to really get the line that I liked, but I have this forward curve that I'm a huge fan of, and then the back is a little bit rougher, and then I'm just going to kind of cut it out and then square this up and see what I like about it. You can kind of see the profile from here. If you look at this left line and then translate it to this right, you know, you'll get a good idea of what it's going to look like. Alright, so this is your outline. It looks super rough right now. That's because it is. I like to leave a lot of room for error. I have a tool that makes it fairly easy to sand this up square so that I can fine tune these curves, and I can look at this board a lot. I'm going to ending up doing a lot of feeling it and feeling the curve and feeling where I sit at and how exactly this plays out. And I'd like to get it right, you know. So this is kind of the starting point, and then we'll tune this shape in, and then we'll start tuning it in for thickness of rocker and kick. Alright, so I pretty much got this trued up to where I'd like to sit as far as your outline. Right now, 24 inches in, we're reading at right about 19, and it's symmetrical to about 19 here, 19 there. At your wide point, we are right at 21.5, which is pretty much right where I wanted to end up. And then your tail, 12 inches in, we're sitting at 14.5, which I like a lot actually. And then your tail, right at 10.5. So as you can see, it's definitely a big board template. You know, we got a full nose here through the first 2 feet, and then your wide point again about 4 inches in front of the midpoint. And then we keep a lot of that volume through the tail. So we're going to keep a lot of volume up front and through the tail as well as through the midpoint. We're going to cut in a concave, probably starting about 6 inches in front of your front foot, and then it'll flatten out, and then it'll go to a double concave through the tail. That'll give you a lot of drive and lift through your front foot, which will create drive, and then a lot of speed coming out the back. So I'm stoked on how this template turned out. Yeah, I like it. Alright, so here's where you're sitting at, brother. It may not show perfectly through the video. Hopefully get kind of a picture of what we're doing here. But you can see the lines of the board. Alright, so if you take a quick look, you see that we got this wide nose, especially through the first about 12 inches, and then we widen a little bit again through the first 24. We hit our wide point, and then we continue that kind of natural curve through the tail. So I'll radius out this tail block at a later point. But for right now, we'll leave it squared off, and then we'll radius it out at a later time. And our next step is to figure out our desired rocker and our desired kick. So I know what those are already, and then we'll do those tomorrow night.